Welcome back to Philippines Uncut. I'm Buddy Cunana. Tonight's topic is the science of earthquakes. And joining us is the director of the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, Director Renato Sorindom. Director, welcome back to our third and final segment. Now, sir, we talked about, before we end our second segment, we talked about what you guys are doing in Volks. And it really looks like you have a lot on your plate, from the tsunamis, to the volcanoes, to the earthquakes, and all that. And my question is to you, sir, okay, with regard to earthquakes, how responsive is the leadership of this country, when, let's say, leadership at the local government level, and let's say national government?
Well, obviously, our government is very responsive to it.
Okay.
The thing, though, is at the details of implementation, that must fall down on the local government. At the national level, there has been a lot of simulation exercise, coordination, planning on how to respond to major events, especially for Metro Manila.
Yes.
Even the Balikatan exercises sometimes are devoted to responding to a big event in Manila, either earthquake or tsunami. And so we have been doing that since 2005. At the local level, of course, initially, it is dependent on how well aware the local leaders are. But with time, with repetition of the scenarios and information campaign, then local leaders started to focus on what they're supposed to do. For example, several cities here in Metro Manila have put up different types of signage that would mark where the West Valley Fault would traverse in their own political boundaries.
Okay.
And obviously, others have started to look at developing an earthquake preparedness plan based on the scenarios, and also making sure that they start looking at individual houses and buildings.
But is there any LGU in Metro Manila? Because we are really highly dense, this is really a high density area. Are there any LGUs that are carrying out or plan to carry out a building audit or a structural audit of the buildings and houses in their
supposedly
areas?
every local building official should be doing that. But in terms of the overall activity, not only building audit, notable local governments would be Makati. They have started preparing for this long ago. Quezon City had put up monuments and have an earthquake preparedness plan in a very detailed manner, together with Makati, Pasig, even Muntinlupa. Taguig is also looking at that. And so those and Marikina, obviously.
Yes.
So those very close to the fault have looked at it. But beyond it, they're also preparing a tool that we have developed that we are sharing with local governments, not only in Metro Manila but all over the world, all over the Philippines, and also the private sector.
Yes.
Would be a software that Phivox DOST developed, where you can simulate the effects of the earthquake. When you have a building audit, you can describe the building in the software, and eventually combine the scenario for earthquake and the description of buildings to evaluate how many buildings will suffer collapse or damage, or how many people will die. And this is called the Rapid Earthquake Damage Assessment System.
Well, I hope all the mayors in Metro Manila can go to your office and see how their localities will
There
fare.
are available maps already,
Yes.
portraying the hazard. We have available reports showing how many casualties will there be per city. But to use the software for a more improved preparedness, many cities or towns have used our software for their comprehensive land use plans, and even in the contingency plans for various disasters, especially for earthquakes.
Yes. Alam niyo po, it's a two-step process, diba? So if you have a structural audit, but then the second phase is what do you do
What to
after?
do. Yeah,
I
what to
mean,
do.
that's a big job,
Yes.
especially in areas where we know that there are a lot of structures that are probably unsound.
Yes, and that's the next step that should be done, is what to do with those houses and buildings that are found to be deficient in terms of its earthquake resistance.
Yes.
Well, obviously, some can be condemned. And in the 1960s and the 1968 Ruby Tower earthquake, and of course the Luzon earthquake of 1990, there have been buildings that were affected and were declared to be condemned. No, one thing is to find out what happened to those. Then do the structural audit, find out if houses can still be retrofitted or strengthened. If not, it's more economical to tear them down and build
Ouch.
one.
Ouch.
But of course, for private houses, and of course they really own the land, then we have to engage them and make sure that they are aware of the problem. for those who can afford, they can do something about
Yes,
earthquake
yes.
resistance.
I mean, if in case someone's house is not found to be earthquake resistant, it really will take a lot of money
Yes.
to
Maybe also
fix it.
options.
Yes.
They should be given options. And
Yes,
because earthquake preparedness cannot be done overnight.
of course.
It'll take tens of years or even decades.
Yes. Now, sir, let's talk about, because you mentioned several times the West Valley Fault or Marikina Fault. And this, this West Valley Fault and Marikina Fault has really spooked
Okay.
a lot of Metro Manila residents, especially those who live in the areas that are adjacent or perhaps who on the fault itself. Tell us a bit about,
Okay, but let me
should they be worried?
Okay, let me clear first the name. The original name of the system is the Marikina Valley Fault System. First name was Marikina Fault, but it's actually composed of two traces, the west and the east. Originally Marikina Valley Fault.
Okay.
But then people tend to dispense with that information thinking that the fault is only in Marikina. So
Kawawa
we
naman yung
decided to
Marikina.
take away the word Marikina
Yes.
because there are cities which would have traces far longer than the fault trace in Marikina. So they own the West Valley Fault more than Marikina.
Yes.
In any case, the West Valley Fault on the western side of the Marikina Valley is actually the longer fault with roughly 100 kilometers length, and the East Valley Fault is a little bit short. So we expect that obviously the larger earthquake will come from the longer fault. So if we focus our attention on the West Valley Fault, this fault has moved 4 times in the past 1,400 years with an interval of movement of roughly 400 to 600 years. It's not that exact, but let's say 400 to 600 years. Therefore, the next thing that you wanted to know is when the last earthquake from this fault happened, and it occurred in 1658, 357 years ago. If we compare 357 to the 400-year lower limit of movement, then they're very close.
Yes.
The conclusion would be it can move in our lifetime.
Yes.
Note, however, that this fault can move earlier or can move later. So the best thing is assume that it can move.
Because statistically, it looks like it is primed to move soon, relatively soon.
Yeah, but we don't know exactly.
Yes.
So we need to prepare for it.
Yes.
And so we should have done preparedness years before. Well, it depends on people and families and cities, but we really have to be serious about it because of the number of population that will be affected, the number of houses that will be affected. And in fact, our study in 2013, we estimated the cost of replacing damaged houses and buildings, not the infrastructure itself, no? It already totaled 2.3 trillion pesos.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow.
For a magnitude 7.2 earthquake. How about if it's lower magnitude? You might expect it's not a problem anymore. But magnitude 6.5 earthquakes are very easy achievable magnitudes of earthquakes.
Yes.
And so if we say magnitude 6.5, the death will be roughly 23,000 still, and the cost of damage is 1.8 trillion pesos.
Wow.
Still a lot.
No, it's a good
So,
argument for
there is
prevention.
no other way but to prepare.
Yes.
And why is that so? We need to make sure Metro Manila is prepared because Metro Manila is the seat of governance,
Business.
seat of business, seat of everything. That if that earthquake happens, Metro Manila and surrounding provinces will be physically affected,
Yes.
directly affected.
It will paralyze the country.
But then the whole
Definitely.
country will be indirectly affected
Definitely,
because of
definitely.
governance and business.
Definitely.
So we need to make sure that our governance and business will have to be prepared. So we have to deal with the systems aside from the physical structures.
Yes. So a lot of viewers are also worried about, let's say, their subdivision lies on top of the fault itself, while some are saying, oh, okay, the fault is over there. It's several kilometers away, so we're safe here. We're 5 kilometers away. What do you have to say about that, sir?
Okay. As mentioned earlier, there are various earthquake-related hazards. The distance to the fault matters, especially if you want to avoid the surface rupture, the break on the ground. Okay? We only have a 5 meter, at least 5 meters of buffer zone, because we're very sure of the distance.
What do you mean by
of the alignment, huh?
What do you mean by buffer zone?
If the fault is mapped in this point, at this point, then move at least 5 meters away,
Okay, all right.
left and right,
Yes, yes.
and you can build your house. The next step is make it earthquake resistant. Whether your house is 10 meters, 20 meters, or several kilometers away, they have to be built so that they can resist the stronger and
Because
shaking.
5 meters is not a lot, right?
Yeah, for the West Valley Fault, our studies indicate that for every earthquake event along this fault, it does not move away more than 5 meters from the actual trace, from the main trace.
What's your advice to people who live in subdivisions, perhaps, who are built over this fault?
Well, of course, the houses that are on top
Okay.
should be made aware of it, and the house owners would now have to decide what to do with their house, whether they want to um, strengthen the foundation of those parts of the houses that are not on top of the fault.
Yes.
Okay? In Quezon City, Makati, Pasig have done that, telling, and Muntinlupa, telling people where these faults are. But the real thing is, make a structural audit. Make sure that houses are okay and strong, and make sure that people know what to do during the shaking and after.
But Director, if the house is built right on top of the fault, what can you really do? I mean, that is.
Okay. Well, the obvious thing is better if they can move.
If they can move.
However,
That's
it's not that easy.
It's
Yeah.
not that easy, no?
So if you have a big house,
Yes.
if you're very rich, then you can make sure that those part of the house that are not on top of the fault can be retrofitted.
Yes. Yeah. Is there such a thing as a minimum safe distance from the fault?
5 meters for the rupture.
Okay, 5 meters.
But the shaking,
But the shaking.
oh, it doesn't matter.
You can
Even
be
50 kilometers away can be affected.
Yes. Yeah.
Can be affected.
And you guys at People know exactly where the fault is, and you have traced exactly.
For the West Valley fault is yes. In fact, by the end of May, before the end of May, we will release an atlas of maps where the valley fault would transect. In fact, in our website, people can see the very detailed map for the Metro Manila, showing roads and houses and the actual trace of the fault. So essentially, if you go to our website now, you can download specific areas where the fault transects, and you can actually see known streets, and you can situate yourselves where the streets are relative to your house. So digital maps are already available in the website, but we will have a turnover of these maps to local governments in Metro Manila with printed map atlas before the end of May.
I think also very useful for people, for prospective homeowners.
Yes.
If you want to buy a house, no, really, practical advice. You should check first, because who wants to buy a house on top of a fault? I mean,
Yes,
I
not
wouldn't.
only that, not only to buy a house.
Or build, or
No, if you want to sell your house, better make sure that you know if there's a fault or not, so that they won't criticize FIVOX by issuing a certification that there's a fault
Yes.
in their house.
Now, sir, practical things about earthquake-proofing the inside of your house. What are practical tips that you can give to people to make sure that the inside of the house is because a lot of things
If
you need
it's
to
already
cost.
constructed?
Yes.
Okay, what you're saying is that if a building will not collapse, then the next thing that people should do is make sure that things inside the house will not fall.
Yes.
Okay, so essentially, have built-in cabinets that are attached on the floor and the wall. But if not, then if you have loose cabinets, tie them up, anchor it. Make sure that hanging objects are anchored properly on the ceiling. For heavy objects, to store them on the lowermost parts of the shelves. So essentially, make sure that things will not fall or topple.
Yes. A lot of injuries happen because of that.
Yes.
No?
And if you are fond of glasses, make sure that you know
They're
that during the
stored properly.
earthquake, during the earthquake, these might fall down, so you have to avoid those areas
Yes, sir.
during the shaking.
Now, sir, finally, a lot of people have been talking about the triangle of life. Let's
Yeah.
say if there's an earthquake, you should stay beside a couch or a big table, because it can form a triangle, a living space, in case a structure collapses. What do you have to say about that?
That was suggested by a con man, so therefore it's not correct. But let me answer it scientifically.
Yes.
When there's a shaking of the ground, and if there's a building, the building will shake. The floor will shake, and the table will shake and move. So the triangle of life proposes that instead of dropping beneath the table and holding the legs of the table so that the table will not divorce you,
Yes.
it will not move
Yes.
away from you,
Yes.
it says lie beside the table
Yes.
and lie in a fetal position such that when the ceiling collapses, it will form a triangle. How can that be when the table is already moved away from you? That proposal suggests a static condition, and only the ceiling collapses, and not the whole building moves. Even you can move, right? The absurd thing, though, is why not use a metal object so that when the ceiling collapses, that metal will not be pushed down, unlike a table which is wooden.
Yes, yes.
Then you lie beside it. That's
Yes.
more absurd.
Yeah.
Because the refrigerator, for example, which is a metallic object, will fall on you.
Yes.
And I always say that when people ask me about it, you will serve the purpose of the refrigerator because you will be placed inside a bigger refrigerator. That is not a good proposal.
So triangle of life debunked.
The
Debunked.
real triangle of life is you go to the safest parts of the building if there's no study table, which can protect falling objects, not to directly hit you. This would be the columns and the posts, the beams and the columns.
Yes, yes.
That is the strongest part of the building, such that when the ceiling collapses, that corner will still be the triangle.
Will still be standing. Someone will still be standing.
Not the one in the website.
The couch or something.
Yeah, that's not good.
Sir, thank you very much for coming to the show. But before we go, maybe you would like to say something to our viewers?
Yes, we at PHIVOX have provided many information that can help people appreciate and have a proper imagination of the disaster that can happen. So we have hazard maps, risk maps that can show which areas will be affected heavily if there's an earthquake or not, which facilities might be affected. More importantly, we have many tips on what to do before, during, and after these events: earthquake, volcanic eruptions, and tsunami, and also guidelines on how to prepare for earthquakes and tsunamis as a family and as a community. So visit our website at www.phivox.dost.gov.ph. If you want to know more about earthquake events, you can visit our website. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So just go to our website, and our accounts on Facebook and Twitter are also indicated. Tsunami warning and volcanic eruption information are also indicated in the website, and events are shared and made news on Twitter and also on Facebook.
Thank you very much, Director Solidum, and God bless you, and more power to you guys at PHIVOX. You're doing a great job, and we will be, following this case and this issue as the weeks and months progress, and hopefully we can raise some good awareness with the public on the need to prepare for possible earthquakes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show today on earthquake awareness. Join us again next week here in the show when we talk about matters to you guys, because you guys matter the most. I'll see you next week.